So we're going to go up here to reports again. Now we're off of the big three in the left-hand side, and we're under the worksheets and choosing the summary of cash activity. So that's the third one down here. On the summary of cash activity, we were asked to identify which asset we're trying to examine or look at. And you can see here we can do our dates, 0101, all the way through the end of January. And you can use the little calendar pull down too if you like to use that. Okay, so here's a zoom in look at our cash account. So you can see at the top here, 1-1, we started with the 15,000. This is all the different ways that money came into the cash account and the ways that money was paid out. And then it is at the end of the month, it's the 11,213 that we saw on our balance sheet. So hopefully you're seeing that these things all relate together. This cash activity is just analyzing the activity in one account or the transactions. Here they're identified as income, contributions, transfers, journal entries, and accounts receivable collections, if you have such a thing. Typically, most of your transactions are going to come from your contributions, and you can see that here. Especially if you have the link between contributions and accounting, then you're sure that the money that you give people credit for over on the contribution side, that money then is showing up in your accounting records. And so basically your contributions should agree with accounting and provide a nice audit trail there to move the money from one module to the other. This income could be other things, interest or rentals and such. So you can kind of see what's going on in your cash account. Then if you scroll down, you'll see the subtractions. These were payments made typically to pay bills, your payroll. That probably is a large part of your budget, and then any transfers or journal entries that you're doing out of the cash account. So again, if you're trying to do a bank reconciliation, sometimes this is a really great report to take a look at. We've had people that were out a certain dollar amount, like $22.84, and then they pop open this summary of cash activity, and sure enough, you see right there where your error was. Perhaps you forgot to enter that in or clear that on your bank reconciliation, and so that's what's accounting for the difference. So this cash activity not only shows you how things have changed, but also can be an aid or a help to you when you're doing your bank reconciliations. I would like to open up a bank reconciliation and just show you basically again how this ties together. So we can see at the end of January, we've basically just over $11,000. I'm going to go in here and just quickly pull up a reconciliation that I've already done. So I'm selecting a saved bank rec and highlighting on that particular month end. And you can see we've entered in our information from our bank statement here. And then our deposits and withdrawals, all of our different activity that we do. I'm just going to go ahead and click on print here to show you what the bank reconciliation looks like. Again, if you're trying to reconcile, you'll notice that the bank statement says one number, and then we've got some deposits in transit that haven't cleared yet, and then these outstanding checks that again haven't cleared. But you'll notice this is really important down here. This 11,213 needs to match exactly what's on our balance sheet. So basically when you're doing preparing your statements, you'll want to go ahead and do your bank reconciliation first of all, because it really lends credibility to your numbers. If your cash is correct, then it would follow that everything else would be at least in a fund or recorded. It might not be in the right place, but it's a good start. So what we typically say is before you present these statements to the board or council or whatever, go ahead and do your bank reconciliation first off, and then make sure that your cash is correct, and then everything else pretty much follows in place. So hopefully just taking a look at that bank reconciliation helps you to understand how that cash account and why that number is showing up on your balance sheet. Some people are always asking, why is that number different than what my bank statement says? Well, it's because the bank hasn't had a chance to clear all the different checks or deposits that you've done. So we're just going to go back to that regular old balance sheet that we looked at before and make sure that we've got our columns and such. And we're going to try to tie this all together so that it makes sense. It is kind of some dry material, isn't it? It's like trying to make it interesting is a challenge for sure. But basically now what we've done is we've talked about the cash accounts. We showed you, this is for the first quarter again, so it's not going to equal that 13,000. This is for the end of March. So I was talking about the end of January before when I was talking about the bank reconciliation. So then down here, your liabilities, things that you owe, and then your fund balances, like I said at the beginning, whose money it is. Who does the money belong to? So if you didn't have these liabilities right here in the middle, in a perfect world, the money in your bank or up top in your assets would equal the fund balances down below. Just something to kind of keep in mind when you're looking at your balance sheet. I did want to go back and do one more treasurer's report because again, a lot of decisions and information can be communicated through that report. The treasurer's was the one that just provides the 4s and 5s, the income and expenses. I'm going to use the general fund because a lot of you, that's the only fund that's budgeted. And I think it's important to understand, again, what you're looking for when you look at that detail. So I'm going to just click on the detail tab here. Let me make it for March again. Perhaps some of you didn't know there is a tab here at the top of the Treasurer's Report options that allows you to pick and choose the level of detail that you want to see in your reports. As you can see here, I've got my expenses opened up and I have them separated out into salaries and benefits, utilities, etc. If I take out the check mark here on the salaries and benefits, that would keep each individual line from showing up on my treasurer's report. And sometimes that's really helpful. There are different reasons why you would want different financial reports. Sometimes it'll be for a vestry meeting or council, but sometimes it's for a larger population, like a congregational meeting or something like that. If that's the case, you don't want the same level of detail as you provide every month for your governing body. So what you might want to do is take off some of these line items, and I'm just going to show you what a real pared down treasurer's report can look like. So if you're being overwhelmed with too much information at some of your meetings, then just try giving a little bit different slant. There you go. That should cut down on those meetings that last until 11:30 p.m. So hopefully you can see here that you can consolidate just about all of our reports by eliminating all the detail that you have. Does that make sense? Okay. Just trying to think if there's anything else that I wanted to cover in terms of the way everything interrelates. Maybe it would be helpful if we went back and took a look at those PowerPoint slides that I had. So if we, just to summarize, take a look back at the graphic that talks about all the chart of accounts, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 basically, and then the way everything is tied together, that might make it a little bit easier to understand the way things flow. So again, we started talking about the balance sheet, which is the snapshot in time as of a certain date, and you get your balancing items, your assets equaling liabilities plus fund balances. Then you have your treasurer's report, which then again mirrors your income statement, your 4s and 5s, those add to the fund balances and subtract from the fund balances. 4s add to, 5s subtract from. And that you can just look at a treasurer's report and see how you're doing. And then the fund activity really involves both your fund balances, income, and expenses. So it's going to show what happened at the beginning of the year. Don't forget, treasurer's report don't include the beginning balances, or doesn't include the beginning balances. So you need to make sure that you show the fund activity if you want to see where you started from, how much you brought in, how much you paid out, and then the ending balance in the fund activity. And then last of all, we talked about the cash activity right up top here, which is just analyzing one of your asset accounts and taking a look at the breakdown on how that moves through the system. So that's basically all I had. I've got a question here. What's the italicized AP on the balance sheet? Oh, thank you. Okay, great. Let me go back and take a look at that. I'm just going to minimize my... Go back and zoom into the balance sheet. Okay, we're going to go ahead and pull that up. So let me just show you. You've got your detail that you're choosing to see right here under the detail tab on your balance sheet. And under, I've got payroll liabilities as a subtotal, and I've got current liabilities as a subtotal. Within the current liabilities, I have the pass-through accounts, which is another account underneath the current liabilities. So let's just go ahead and print this. I don't know if it matters that I do it for March, but I'll try to be consistent here. What this is showing, great question. See right here, all of these have individual accounts. 941 taxes payable, state, city, pension, flexible spending. These all came from the payroll side. Right under here, the accounts payable is in italics because it's a combination of all the sub-accounts underneath it. As you can see right underneath here, pass-through accounts. This is a combination of Housing for Habitat and Soup Kitchen. These are our two specific liabilities that we owe someone else. So remember we said that liabilities meant we owed it somewhere else. The accounts payable, this is totaling $125 at the end of the quarter. So that means that probably a couple of vendors would combine to owe that much money at the end of the first quarter. So if we wanted to find out what those accounts were, let me just take you back to our chart of accounts screen, and hopefully you can see this okay. Here's the accounts payable and then all of the listing of the vendors underneath. So basically it's a couple of those vendors that are combining to include that accounts payable. The reason it's italicized is because it's like a master account or what we call a ledger account. And so any that have sub-accounts underneath them will appear italicized on the balance sheet. I'm just going to go ahead and close out of that chart of accounts. Okay, well, I hope that this is what you were expecting tonight. I hope that you were coming to learn how to interpret basically what your statements are saying. It wasn't a real sophisticated presentation in terms of, you know, if you're a CPA and you're working for a public firm or something like that, this wouldn't be that challenging for you, but our desire was to communicate to the average person who is attempting to understand financial statements and how they work, how they fit together, just some information. So if you are the major corporation type and you want to conduct another seminar that's a little bit more in-depth, feel free, you can do the next one. But hopefully this was helpful for everyone. So I really appreciate everyone joining us this evening. Welcome to all of our people that came in from all across the country. I know we had some people from Hawaii join in as well, which is really great when you're crossing that many time zones. I'm not sure if we have any other countries, but we have in the past had different countries in our webinars. So If this was your first one, join us for another one sometime in the future. Keep checking churchwindows.com and you'll see possibly some future educational seminars that we're going to do in this format. So thanks a lot for joining us, and just encourage you to give us a call on tech support. We're always standing by to take your questions and such. Thanks so much for coming in tonight.